poets have always been fascinated with birds and birdsong. Ovid wrote about birds, as did medieval poets like Gower and Chaucer. Shakespeare made reference to all kinds of birds, from the blackbird to the buzzard, the woodcock to the wren. There's Keats's nightingale, Shelley's skylark, T.S. Eliot's hermit thrush, Maya Angelou's caged bird, and Alice Oswald's slowed-down blackbird. But the question I wanted to explore is not can a poet be inspired by birds or birdsong, but can a poet write like a bird sings? I don't mean can we find language to describe how birdsong sounds, with words like whistle, warble, tweet, twitter, cheep or chirrup. And I don't mean word-like sounds that approximate through onomatopoeic representations what birds sound like, as with Thomas Nash's poem Spring that includes the line, repeated in each of the poem's 3 stanzas, cuckoo, jug-jug, poo-wee, to-wit-to-woo. What I'm interested to explore is a possible, potential, hypothetical relationship between the structure of birdsong and the structure of poetry, what we call poetic form. In poetry, form is the overall structure or pattern of a poem, the length of the lines, the rhythm or metre, the system, if there is one, of rhymes and repetitions. Sometimes a poem's form can be organic, following no particular rules, but poems can also be very formal, adhering to a strict pattern. For human poets, there are metric feet, lines, stanzas, and whole poems. For birds, it's usually broken down into notes, syllables, motifs, which are sometimes also called phrases, and song bouts. There are some similarities between these units of birdsong and human speech, but they aren't straightforward like-for-like translations. For example, a syllable in birdsong is defined as an acoustic production separated by gaps of silence. And some researchers have suggested that these gaps are for breaths. Whereas in human language, a syllable is a unit containing a vowel sound, which can be the whole or part of a word. A metric foot is more like a bird's note. Notes go up and down in pitch and can be short or drawn out. And feet can seem to go up or down depending on the arrangement of stressed and unstressed syllables. A poetic line, especially one that's related to the poet's breath, as my lines inevitably are, is a bit like a bird's syllable. Motifs could relate to particular patterns of sounds and rhythm in a poem, whether at the level of the line or stanza. And depending on the poem, song bouts could relate to stanzas or even whole poems. And each species of bird has its own song, of course, and while they all include notes, syllables, motifs, and songs, how they use them varies considerably. So the first thing to note is that a poet can't write like a bird sings, but might be able to write like a zebra finch, or a sparrow, or a blackbird, or even a nightingale. Research into starling songs shows that there are generally 4 distinct motifs. The first is a whistle or a warbling sound, followed by a faster motif of more complex phrases with short pauses between. Then a soft motif that incorporates some clicking sounds, and a final loud motif that includes high frequency sounds. It's possible to pick out some of these sections from this recording of a starling. Translating the first 2 motifs of a starling's song, the warble and the rattle, into a poetic form results in an anapestic meter, which is 2 unstressed syllables followed by a stressed one. Here's how it sounds using nonsense words. Jubilee, jubilee. In the blink of an eye, by the skin of your teeth, at the drop of a hat, hit the nail on the head. Poetry and birdsong already have lots in common. They're both designed to be performed live. They both convey meaning through sound, rhythm, and repetition. And silences and pauses are not just meaningless gaps, but an integral part of the overall effect. And it does seem that by listening carefully to birdsong over and over again to discern the patterns of sound and rhythm, a poet might indeed be able to write like a bird sings. I'm developing these bird forms much more fully in the collection of poems I'm currently writing, which is called Bird Speech.
Je vous remercie vivement de cette invitation à parler d'échanges humains-non humains avec les baleines à bosse. Je sais combien, au sein de l'Oxford Center of Life Writing, on s'attache à ce qu'il se joue entre le verbal et le non-verbal. Il s'agit aujourd'hui de raconter une histoire au-delà des questions d'humanité. Elle se heurte aux mots, au verbe, à la phrase. Pourtant, il s'agit bien de rencontres, d'échanges, d'altérité. Je suis navigatrice, autrice de documentaires radiophoniques et compositrice de musique électroacoustique et concrète. J'ai traversé 2 fois l'Atlantique et le passage du Nord-Ouest, le pôle Nord magnétique par l'océan glacial arctique, à la voile. Les souvenirs de rencontres avec les grands mammifères marins sont nombreux, à chaque fois différents, et à chaque fois que j'y repense, chaque souvenir se recompose différemment et s'affine. Quelque temps après la traversée de l'océan glacial arctique, je fais des recherches au Centre culturel inuit de Paris. Au même moment, Olivier Adam, bioacousticien, spécialiste des cétacés, fait alors une conférence sur les chants de baleines et de dauphins. Il diffuse un grand nombre d'enregistrements. À leur écoute, j'ai l'impression pour certains de les avoir déjà entendus. Peut-être à travers la coque des voiliers. Je suis à ce moment-là en train d'étudier la composition électroacoustique et concrète. Cette musique singulière n'use pas de partition, ni même d'instrument. Elle s'attarde à la musicalité des sons enregistrés au microphone et des phénomènes sonores. Elle propose une écoute acousmatique, ce qui signifie que la cause des sons n'existe plus, l'instrumentiste non plus. C'est toujours l'écoute qui est convoquée et mise en jeu. Depuis Pierre Schaeffer qui l'a inventé, nous savons par exemple que diffuser un son en boucle recompose continuellement son écoute jusqu'à en percevoir des choses très subtiles. Une grande conversation démarre avec Olivier Adam. Alors qu'il m'envoie un CD entier de chants de baleines, ma journée s'arrête et je commence à décortiquer les sons vivants enregistrés. La cause des sons, les baleines ne sont pas là. Quelques semaines plus tard, je suis au concert, un bassoniste contemporain s'avance sur scène, il sait chercher la musicalité par-delà la note, à l'intérieur même du son. Je l'invite en studio et nous commençons à travailler à l'intérieur du son, des phénomènes sonores. Et puis je diffuse un enregistrement de chants de baleines à bosse. Le bassoniste s'arrête et il me dit « Mais pourquoi les baleines jouent du basson ?» Aujourd'hui, j'ai travaillé avec 3 bassonistes différents. Ils ont tous apporté quelque chose de singulier au projet. Et si j'entremêle des enregistrements de baleines à bosse et de basson, aucun ne savent dire s'il s'agit de baleines ou de basson. Olivier Adam non plus. Les chants de baleines à bosse sont composés d'unités sonores et de silences qui forment des phrases et des sous-phrases répétées en leitmotiv. Elles ont été décrites par Roger Payne et Scott McVeigh dans Science en 1971. Et puis, je suis partie avec tous ces sons de basson travailler à la manière électroacoustique à La Réunion, une étape de la route migratoire des baleines à bosse dans l'océan Indien. J'ai travaillé une petite interface numérique de jeu aquatique sommaire, de sorte que je puisse déclencher des sons de factures différentes dans l'eau via un haut-parleur et les enregistrer par un microphone plongé dans un autre coin du bateau. J'ai écouté plus profondément les chants et j'ai repéré un son dans le leitmotiv sur lequel m'appuyer pour diffuser dans l'eau un son humain afin de signifier que j'étais en train d'écouter leur chant. Les baleines ont commencé à changer la facture de ce son, et puis d'autres en échangeant, jusqu'à m'emmener vers un jeu commun sur un type de son très particulier, les sons pulsés. Les sons pulsés surgissent comme un épais ronronnement. Les éthologues ont admis aujourd'hui que les ronronnements de chats ont un rôle très important pour communiquer leur contentement dans l'espèce ou interespèce, mais aussi pour désamorcer des conflits sociaux. Nous ne savons presque rien concernant les comportements des baleines à bosse. Par 3 fois, elles nous ont emmenés dans ce jeu vers les sons pulsés. Et aujourd'hui, je développe une interface numérique bien plus avancée avec Dimo Schwartz de l'IRCAM et je retourne en mer les 2 étés prochains avec l'assentiment du ministère de l'Environnement. Parce qu'il fallait conclure ces échanges, je voulais donner à écouter aux baleines une musique très belle, une musique ancienne, chantée par les femmes au bord de l'océan à l'ami disparu en mer. Je vous laisse apprécier ce qu'il s'est passé. De notre côté, nos corps ont lâché, nous nous sommes effondrés, liquides, au fond du bateau.
Hi, my name is Olivier Adam. I'm professor at Sorbonne University, Paris, France. I do my research on humpback whale songs since 2007. Just before starting, I would like to briefly introduce this species. Humpback whales are mysticeti species. It means that they have no teeth but baleines. They are known because of very long migration routes between feeding and breeding areas. During the breeding season, the males emit successive vocalizations in a specific repetitive manner, make sentences and leitmotif. These vocalizations are emitted between 2 sentences, like this. This is a song from humpbacks of Sainte Marie Island, Madagascar. So this is a vocalization, silence, vocalization, silence, vocalization. The acoustic features of these sound units are the following. First, the fundamental frequency is very low, between 20 and 100 Hz. Some of these sound units have also harmonics frequency up to 8 to 10 kHz. These units are emitted in a specific order in time sequences, and male individuals from the same area share these sound units. So we can speak about regional dialects. The assumptions about the use of these songs are still under investigation. I mean, because they are emitted during breeding seasons by the males, we think that these sound units, these songs are correlate to breeding activities. So the first assumption was to say that these songs are probably attractor to the female, but playbacks were done during the 80s and 90s, and the results were not very convincing because the females didn't come to the boat, to the speaker, and so we are not sure about this assumption of attractor. During the 2000s year, a new assumption was suggested by researchers, and they think that probably the songs are more emitted during male interactions, because we know that the competition between males are very high to access the female, and maybe the songs can be one of the different strategies males have to reach a female and to win the competition. The history of these songs is amazing. Humpback whale recordings were done during the 60s, but we can say that the paper from Roger Penn and Scott McVeigh, published in Science in 1971, was the starting point of all this history. In this article, the authors were the first to define what is a sound unit, what is a phrase. They introduced the word song for the first time to describe these vocalizations. And at this time, in 1971, we have no idea that there are sound underwater in the oceans. And we are very far from the idea that these animals can sing in the ocean. So their published work were so new and so amazing. They published also a vinyl album entitled Song of Humpback Whales, and this album was a source of inspiration for a large public, for new scientific people, and of course for different artists. These recordings opened the view what we had about these amazing whales and life in our ocean that is need to protect, and to protect them more. This album was played at the United Nations to contribute to stop the whaling, because at this time different nations continue to kill the whales in the wild environment. And this album is now listed by the American National Recording Registry. These American institutions focus on the major American music, like for example Frank Sinatra, Prince, Michael Jackson, and so on. So this album is in this registry. And also they add these recordings in the program, the NASA program Voyager. So it's the Voyager is somewhere in space. So if when aliens will find these capsules, they will be able to hear different human voices, but also humpback whale sound. This song is structured in cultural transmission and is specific of the same area and during the same breeding season. So what about the vocal generator? In fact, it's a very different, it's specific to Mystecies species and very different from all the different mammal species, including aerial, terrestrial, and marine mammals. They don't have vocal cord like us, but folds like us, but their vibrator is made by two cartilages called the arytenoid cartilages. And these cartilages are positioned at the junction between the trachea and the laryngeal sac. Okay, here on this drawing from Joy Redenberg, the breathing system is the respiratory system is in red, and we can see the nasal cavity. So let's go inside the anatomy of this whale. So we go through the nasal cavity. The nasal cavity is about 150 or 60 meters. Here it's a epiglottis, like us. Under on this part, you can see the opening of the laryngeal sac. And we are going to the trachea. To the trachea, it's about 1 meter, 20 centimeters. And we made the U-turn in the lungs and come back. And we can see the arytenoid at the junction between the trachea and the laryngeal sac. This is very interesting because it has some specific common points with the bassoon. For the bassoon, the vibrator is made by two reeds tied together, and the use of these reeds with the pressure of the lip of the musician is at the end very similar of how the humpback whale use the arytenoid cartilage with different pressure to make the space more or less open and change the way how to vibrate with the airflow. Okay, the airflow is coming from the lungs and go through the arytenoid, and the membrane around the arytenoid start to vibrate. The other thing is the size of the different elements of the bassoon and the humpback whale generator. It's amazing because the bassoon is made with a 250-meter long conical drill tube made of precious wood. So of course we have no wood inside the whale, but the length of the nasal cavities and the length of the trachea is pretty the same. The other thing is that the whale use air circulation in both directions, from the length to the laryngeal sac and from the laryngeal sac to the length. And we can make a parallel with a bassoon musician who use the circular breathing to play with their instrument. All of these is kind of surprising and make the bassoon as a music instrument close to the vocal generator of humpback whales. So thank you for your attention. If you have any question, feel free to send us an email. Bye.
Honeybees live in large societies with tens of thousands of individuals. There are times in the life of the colony where small-scale communication is required. For instance, a bee may request grooming from another bee. A bee may request food from another bee. Or a bee may want to indicate an exciting source of food to another bee. There are times in the life of the colony where large-scale communication is required. A colony may be attacked by a predator hungry for honey, and an en masse defensive response will be required. A beautiful day may start and large-scale activation of the colony may be required so that more bees are seen to forage. Or it may be the right time for swarming, and half the population may have to leave the colony, united together by that decision. If we can understand the meaning of the communication that is taking place, then we get the privilege of stepping into another society from which we used to be excluded. If we start actively communicating with the animal, this gives us the potential to change their lives and change our lives without any spending of energy or resources, simply by sending raw information. We start giving new directions to our lives. New potentials appear. We grow taller, driven by the challenges that we are faced with. Engaging with challenges is the platform of our lives. All life forms are engaging in some kind of competitive process. There is no need to win the competition. Engaging with it is what makes us grow taller. Engaging with obstacles that are in our way has resulted in increasing success, even in mankind, where perhaps an extended ability to imagine solutions to our problems is key. Pushing our imagination beyond its limits has yielded outstanding rewards that has resulted in a sustained feedback loop where our ability to live an internal life has also produced immense pleasure, satisfaction, reward, and success. Imagination comes with a reward that can stimulate its own rapid development, provided a threshold is reached in the feedback loop. like our sun burning its own fuel, like the heat coming from a match that you strike to start its combustion, we are presently extending our ability to use our imagination to find that we can give a direction to our development, and to also find that the process is so fast that it can easily lead to self-destruction.
I am an artist and writer, and I'm interested in our relationship to other species. I work with invertebrates to explore how their behaviour can represent and transform human stories and communication. During the pandemic, I've been creating short videos within the confines of my house and garden. Homewrecker was recorded in the spring when the spiders are hatching. This second video, Biofouling, is about stickiness, the stickiness of materials, of human relationships, and of the things that we make. This final video, Battleships, was made in the autumn when the spiders were at their largest. I share a house with my mum, who is quadriplegic, and this video is about our relationship with each other and our relationship to the creatures we share our house with.